Welcome back, everybody, to Godspeed TV. I'm your host, Riley Roseby, your navigator in this AI-enabled paradigm shift. Thrilled to have you guys here today. Big day, right? We had the Fed meeting. We had some big cap tech earnings. Tesla is tiptoeing at all-time highs. Joby was up almost 10% on autonomous flight partnership with NVIDIA. There's a lot going on. Before we get into it, though, some of you guys may remember I brought a bell when we were first starting this program. I don't have a bell. I have this pretty cool drum, but in the green room, Gene was telling me you guys can't hear this, which is a little bit of a bummer because I was really hoping to get the party started. But let us begin. 25 basis points rate cut. The market kind of, we shook it off a little bit. Stocks are closing at their highs. Those big cap tech names ramped into the close. But the big takeaway here is that the December rate cuts are not a quote-unquote foregone conclusion. So the prediction markets going into today had a greater than 80%, I think it was like a 95% chance of a 25 basis point rate cut in December. Following Jay Powell's presser, that dropped all the way down to 65%. So these are the numbers to watch. We're going to keep an eye on the prediction markets. God bless Polymarket and Kalshi for figuring this stuff out. We'll keep an eye. It is a very, very useful tool for us. Big cap tech earnings. So we had a couple names, right? Just a few. Google, Meta, Microsoft, all after the close. Apple and Amazon will go tomorrow. But let's take a look at Google. Google is gapping up like 5 or 6% after hours. Revenue grew 16% year over year, but look at this. The Google Cloud revenues increased 34%. AI infrastructure and generative AI solutions, right? These are the big buzzwords, keywords we're focusing on. Everything about AI. And you can see Google gapping up to all-time highs. I drew that thick black line there. That's where the stock was trading after hours. When I cut this chart maybe 30 minutes ago, I'm sure the price has fluctuated from then. Let's take a look at Microsoft. Revenue grew 18% year over year. Now the stock is down. It was down about 5 or so percent. And this, I think, is something to watch, right? The forward-looking guidance in connection with the quarterly earnings report will be shared on its conference call and webcast. So it's a little too early to say what the guidance here is for Microsoft. But with the stock sliding a little bit, we'll want to see buyers step in and take a look at this chart, right? Microsoft kind of, started pulling away from its consolidation period, its sideways action, going back to its last earnings report in, what would it have been, end of July, early August? I can't totally make out the date there, but you could see this big blue candle, right? That was that earnings report. And now moving on to Meta, revenue grew 26%. Shares are down 7 or 8% after hours. And really, the big indicator I was kind of taking a look at here is that their CapEx is expected to grow in 2026. And I think some of these figures maybe spooked investors. The stock was sliding. You can see we're right back at these support levels from early October, July, kind of those polarity zones in June where we were hitting that support, flipped into resistance. So big day tomorrow. Like I said, Apple and Amazon are going to be reporting, but we want to see how these names trade. We want to give them some room. We want to let them dance, like JC likes to say. We'll make our assessment at the end of the week. I'm not too eager to be making too many conclusions on these names before we finish out the week. Let's go ahead and move on. There's a couple names already that are just making noise, right? Our fall 2025 earnings winners. Bloom Energy, I think, is number one on that list. The stock was up 18%. It's up almost 500% year to date, folks. Absolute monster of a winner. You got to tip your hat to anybody involved in this name, especially if y'all were buying in the sub 30 mark and are continuing to hold on. I salute y'all. I salute y'all. Caterpillar, another big one. Hat tip to Alfonso on the All-Star Charts team. I know he has been all over this one, beating it like a drum. Stock gapped up 12%. Right? These are things that we typically see in uptrends. Charts going from the bottom left to the top right. Let's move along, excuse me, to NVIDIA's keynote yesterday. Now, if you guys haven't been paying attention, NVIDIA is kind of the picks and shovels of this whole AI universe, right? They're building the chips, the semiconductors. They got the biggest and baddest tools for all this AI gear, all these AI applications, and they didn't disappoint once again yesterday. Jensen sporting his leather jacket, and the keynote really just cemented NVIDIA's and America's position in the AI arms race. The company announced a $1 billion investment in Nokia to build out 6G and telecom infrastructure. It feels like we're going back to the 1990s, although I checked my calendar. It's 2025. And then the most exciting thing, I got to say, this was the most exciting thing for me coming out of this keynote. There's the chart, but the most exciting thing was NVIDIA and Joby's collaboration on autonomous flights. You read that right. We're already working on autonomous flight. We're talking about autonomous driving, but we're going to look ahead to autonomous flight. So Joby taps NVIDIA to accelerate next era autonomous flight, named launch partner of IXG Thor platform. So I think what's really, really significant with this is NVIDIA's selection of Joby as the only aviation launch partner for the new NVIDIA IGX Thor platform, right? So Archer, our good old friend Archer, is a little bit left out in the cold here with NVIDIA. That is going to be something to watch, right? We all know NVIDIA is in pole position, making the picks and shovels of this AI autonomous era, and they tapped Joby as the exclusive partner for this program. That's going to be big. That's going to be big. Here's a nice little graphic they released in their official press release, and you can see, yeah, that's what the machines are going to be looking at as they're flying us around in flying cars. I hope you guys are ready for it, because I sure as heck am. And I want to bring our attention to this Joby chart, because take a look at this bad boy, right? We are in a massive range, consolidating between, what was it, like $22 all the way down to 13. We're just going sideways ever since mid-July, and we found some support here in the last few weeks at around that $15 level, right? So Joby was up 9% today following the partnership agreement with NVIDIA. If those lows hold, if today's lows hold, we want to be buying this thing, and I think we want to be buying it aggressively, right? We've got to look at just the sum of the parts within what's occurring here with Joby. They are on the 4-yard line, the 3-yard line, the 2-yard line of FAA type certification. We're seeing their little eVTOLs, the S4, flying around all over the world. We're expecting commercial flights to begin in Dubai probably early 26 is what everyone seems to be thinking. The clock is ticking. At some point, I would expect Joby and Archer to both make a run, and they might be gearing up to go. We got to keep an eye on today's low in Joby. Now Tesla, our good old friend Tesla, it is tiptoeing to all-time highs. And take a look. Here's the daily chart. I wanted to show this because with all the madness of today, the rate cuts, the earnings, the Trump, the this, the that, whatever you want to say, we had a nice, beautiful inside day. And we are closing at what I believe is the second highest close of all time for Tesla. We're still below that December 2024 all-time high, which I want to say is like 479 and change. So we got a few points to go. Stone's throw away. But we got to keep an eye on this name, right? We're talking about earnings reactions, and we saw the earnings reaction last week Tesla had. It stuck, absolutely stuck this 415 level. Buyers showed up. They're continuing to be gobbling up shares. Now, today's price action, like I said, it's a little weird. We had the Fed. We had all these earnings. What are those 5 big cap tech names make up of the Qs? Close to 30%, 35%, somewhere in that range. So we shouldn't expect a lot of action until we see those earnings prints. That's just my 2 cents. Now I want us to zoom out on the Tesla because there's a couple interesting things occurring. So I've been talking about this measured move. I love measured moves because they're simple, right? They're simple, easy to understand. If a stock made a move, significant move, and goes sideways, you can kind of expect a similar move that that first initiation thrust had. We all know about Tesla's move in 2019 through what would you say, 2021? But the second month in that move, the second month, the stock was only up 4.77%. Now, Tesla so far this month here in October of 2025 is up just shy of 4%. We all know history likes to rhyme. It doesn't necessarily repeat. So it might be a little too presumptuous to say that we're going to get the exact same price action, but I think that's pretty interesting. I think that's pretty significant. And then I want to draw our attention to this lower pane. And the lower pane is total dollar volume, right? So this is the price the stock is trading at times the total volume. And you can see we made an all-time high. And we are making a new all-time high on a monthly basis, which leads me to believe we're leading higher. You got to make a new all-time high in shares traded if you want to see the stock have that continuation in that follow through. It only makes sense, right? The math is mathing, as they all like to say. Drones is a big theme. We've been talking about drones, obviously EV tolls, but what was it, in July, June, when the administration put out that fancy executive order calling for unleashing American drone dominance. Well, there's now an ETF for that. And shout out to our friends over at Rex Shares for putting this together. They're following VettaFi's drone index, but this is a pure play ETF. Now, I got to say, this isn't a solicitation to go buy this thing day one. Let it print, let it trade, let some volume come in. But this is a great heuristic for the overall health of this ecosystem, of this industry, as it's just starting to emerge. We talk about, magazine covers. Sometimes we talk about ETF issuance or ETF closures as kind of turning points in the market. And I'm not necessarily making this drone ETF out to be one of those turning point marks. We may see a little cool off, but like I said, folks, this is a pure play ETF. There's no leverage. There's no inverse action. There's no income generating extras, right? This is a pure play ETF. And here are the top 15 holdings. Drone Shield. I want to give a shout out to Drone Shield because this is a Sydney-based drone company. And I think it's fantastic that as investors, asset allocators, traders, we can access these international markets, Drone Shield being based in Sydney, through this ETF listed on US exchanges. I'm sure some of you are limited in what you're able to trade. You may or may not have exposure to international equities directly on international exchanges. Well, these ETFs are a great tool. So we'll keep an eye on this drone ETF from Rex. Once again, big shout out to those guys. I've been longtime friends with them, worked over at Osprey a number of years ago. So I'm really excited to see them coming out with these pure play names. I'm hoping they're going to come out with some more. And folks, you can officially buy a robot, right? It's 2025. We're all talking about robots. Well, you can go ahead and buy a robot. This teaser came out, and let's just have a watch. Let's see. Can I get this to play? There we go. Just give it a second. All right, so that was 1X displaying its Neo Home robot. Officially went on sale yesterday, October 28th, and there are a few interesting things about this offering. Number one, it's 20 grand. $20,000 gets you the Neo delivered to your home sometime in 2026. We don't have an exact date, month, but we have a year. And there's also, I think this is really fascinating, and I'm going to keep an eye on this. There is a monthly subscription plan for this robot. You can pay $500 a month rather than having to fork over that 20K out the gate. Now, I think this is really fascinating because we all know Apple's a cash cow from its add-ons, its services, Apple Care, Everybody loves recurring revenue. So if these humanoids are coming out at the 20, 30-ish grand price range, and all these companies are doing monthly subscriptions, I'm going to be really fascinated to see the conversion rates on how many folks purchase a robot via subscription, how many folks purchase a robot outright. And let's kind of keep an eye on that, right? We all thought it was crazy when Apple started selling $1,200 iPhones. Well, you can chop that up into a month. $20,000 robots are like kind of the next evolution of that. $500 a month doesn't seem too bad, but that's up to you. Earnings season is still in full force, right? We're talking about Amazon and Apple tomorrow after the close, as well as Reddit and Coinbase, rocket companies, Cloudflare, Roku, big names coming up. Roblox early in the morning. But like I've said, all earnings season, like I've said throughout the year, let's not try and make too much of what is happening with these earnings reports. Let's let the numbers print and let's follow the reaction of the stocks. Folks, that's all I got for you today. I hope you have a great rest of the week. Try not to trade too much. Get some time outside. It's beautiful fall weather. In Sedona, it's like sunny and 75 every day. I know the fall foliage is in full force up in the Northeast. So I hope you guys all enjoy the fall weather and the fall festivities. I'll see y'all next week.